when Dr. McGee became my mentor, even as I was a sophomore there at Iowa State back in the mid 70s. Find a mentor. That's the key building block there. Find a mentor. Find someone that you know. Maybe not. It doesn't even have to be in your curriculum. It could be if you've worked on a project, you know, in something outside your curriculum, whatever. And there's a professor, or there's an instructor, or there's a visiting lecturer, or there's, you know, whatever. Or there's someone in practice at this point in time that you've worked with, maybe even as an intern or something. Find a mentor. Choose carefully. Choose somebody that you know has skills, that you know can teach, that you can relate to, and that they can relate to you. Choose them and just, you know, hitch your wagon to them, and make sure that you learn the things that they know. Make sure that you're asking questions. Make sure that that you're open to having a relationship with them, that you can exchange ideas, and that you can try and get where they are. So the first step is finding a mentor, and it's very important, because if you don't have a mentor, and actually during the course of your career, you probably will accumulate quite a few mentors, especially if you work at a number of companies. I had the privilege in the second company that I worked with when I was out of Iowa State. I worked for Texas Instruments. And I thought it was going to be a little bit boring at first, because here I was, a 22, 23-year-old young engineer, and I got stuck in a cubicle with two. Of course, I thought at that point in time they were very old engineers. Bob Massey was probably in his mid 50s, and Don Height was in his late 40s or early 50s, and I'm 63 now, so I guess if they were old, I must be ancient. So I'm kind of changing my idea about what's old and what's not now. But that turned out to be one of the best things that happened in my career also, because those two gentlemen, veterans of Texas Instruments, Bob with over 30 years with Texas Instruments at the time, and Don with over 20, they were able to take me under their wing, give me some assignments, send me on a wild goose chase every once in a while, and kind of chuckle at me, and then say, okay, you know, why should or shouldn't you have done this or that? But they gave me a lot more than I ever gave them as someone that was working for and with them. And at just about every step of my life, there have been people like that. And of course now, later in life, as I've grown older, then the tables are reversed, and I find myself mentoring others. And that's what I've pretty much concentrated on doing in my life and in my work for the last probably a couple decades anyway, or more of my career. Find a mentor. It's very important. Do that. The second thing that you need to take into account, and for a lot of people that might just make sense, but you really need to avail yourself of the different societies, professional clubs, company activities, industry activities, anything that's out there where you can make contacts with people that are in the same capacity that you are, as well as people that are doing different things than what you're doing. The more people you make contacts with, the more apt you are to be able to have the expert help, and to have details about things that you don't know much about, but that are necessary to do your work. If you and once you make the contacts, another important part of that is that you need to keep in touch with those contacts. If you meet Joe Smith over here at a conference sometime, and maybe you're staying in the same hotel, or you're in the same industry, and so you hit it off or whatever, and you talk to them for 2 or 3 days at the conference, but then nothing ever happens after that. You never ever call them, you never email them, you never make any effort to stay in touch. Then you've not really you've made a contact, but you haven't really made an ally. And so the second step, make contacts and keep in touch so that you then can avail yourself of those things. So I find myself, as the years have gone on, of course, my contact list is unfortunately almost infinite now. It's often difficult to stay in touch with people, especially since people change jobs so frequently these days. But over the course of time, these contacts that you make, there will be a core group of people that have expertise in a variety of things that can really enhance your career as well. You know that maybe you've learned some things from them. You've learned some things from their work or from interactions with them, but they are still a subject matter expert in something that's outside of your expertise. And every time you call on them, every time that you chat with them, you grow, and vice versa. They're doing the same thing. If they're talking to you, it's more and keeping in touch after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 40 years in some cases, like some of my colleagues. Then they're growing also. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. So first, find a mentor or mentors, grab onto those people, learn from them. Second, make and keep contacts and stay in touch with them. Know their birthday, send them a note on their birthday. Over time, you'll find out that a lot of them, you may even, if you're traveling in their area, you may even be able to visit with them, meet their families. I mean, you have to make things take things to a personal level, and then that can also help you. The third thing is more of a way that you would approach the jobs that you have during your career. One of the things that you never should be afraid to do, whether you're a 21 or 22-year-old engineer just starting, or whether you're a 63 or 64-year-old engineer, or however old it is that you are when you retire. Number 3, offer to help. Always offer to help. Whenever you offer to help a colleague, where whether it's something that you really truly feel comfortable with, or something that you have time for, even if you offer to help, and maybe you have to rearrange some of your schedule in order to assist, you're going to be forging relationships, and at the same time, you're going to be able to get involved in a part of a project, or maybe even an entire project, which you never would have been involved in, and wouldn't have the opportunity to learn some of the things that would be involved in that particular project or that particular scope of work. Many cases in point over my career, when I was at Texas Instruments, I was hired to be a photolithography engineer. I volunteered to work third shift, not a whole lot of fun, but to work third shift for a short period of time when they needed a metallography engineer. And so that was, although I'd studied thin film depositions in some of my classes at Iowa State, I'd never really done it, and I had been involved in photolithography work for a couple years. But by volunteering to sit in place of the process engineering people in metallography, Then I learned a lot about thin film deposition, plasma deposition, a large number of things that would be very important for some other things in my career. But I never would have done that if I hadn't volunteered to assist there when they needed somebody to assist. I was capable. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but by the time I was done, I did. And that enhanced my career and made me a more saleable engineer. It made me a more well-rounded engineer, and it enhanced my thought processes so that as I approached problems, even back in my still main focus photolithography area, I approached them from a different perspective and was able to have a wider variety of solutions available for me, so that I could solve the problems more quickly, more easily, and sometimes more efficiently. Pardon me. So, find a mentor, make contacts and keep them, offer to help. Another thing that young engineers, and old for that matter, often make, a mistake that is made often, is when there's the possibility of changing assignments, or there's a new job role that might become available in your company, or maybe a job offer that would come from outside the company that a recruiter might think that, or maybe even the company that is recruiting might think that you would be capable for, but you're just not really sure about it, or on the surface, you don't think it's interesting. So I would say number 4 is never turn down assignments and projects that are outside your area of expertise or even your area of interest, just because they're outside your area of expertise or interest. Use your brain. Use the rational thought processes that you have. Use the mentors if you're following this process. Going back to step 1, contact your mentor or mentors and talk it over with them. A lot of times those people are great resources to get you motivated to do something that's a little bit outside your comfort zone. And when you do that, you'll find out that sometimes the things that you thought you weren't interested in are awfully interesting. And sometimes they may not be mundane, but they just may not be interesting enough to keep you for the rest of your career. But the bottom line is that if you then go to this area that you're not familiar with and you become proficient in it, going back to the Da Vinci Renaissance man ambidextrous focus of this, then now you've added another facet to your engineering abilities. You've added another part to your character, where you are now ready, willing, and able to delve into problems in another area that you wouldn't have been knowledgeable about before, because you have firsthand experience there. Case in point, when I left Texas Instruments, I had worked there in photolithography, and as I said, metallography. Also helped the training people there set up some really good cross-training procedures where we let the operators understand how their jobs related to other jobs. I worked in the silicon crystal growth area also for a short period of time, and all those things, managing technicians and managing equipment and getting involved with equipment vendors and all that. There were a lot of different activities there. The recruiter that I'd been working with found a job opening for me in a company that did semiconductors and night vision equipment, and I guess thermoelectric cooler equipment as well, 3.5 semiconductor materials. And but the job was not for a process engineer. The job was not for somebody that that would be out on the line making things work and troubleshooting problems. It was for a senior development engineer reporting directly to the vice president of engineering for the company. And because of my interfaces with equipment and processes both, and my ability to work with people, the recruiter thought that I could fill the bill for this. And after talking to my mentors and going through the interview process, I decided to take a chance on it. And what the job was, this company had never had a clean room for their semiconductors, and they wanted to build their first clean room, and they wanted somebody that had an all-around knowledge of a wide variety of things that could also work with construction people. And I'd never done that before. But I had worked with equipment vendors and installations and stuff like that. So I took a chance on that, and it was a great opportunity. By the way, it resulted in a 50% increase in my salary, which was at age 26 was a pretty nice thing. But that was the least concerning thing about me, about that particular change in my life. I saw that as an opportunity to gain more skills. So I was able to then work with a general construction contractor. I did the budget processing. I did set up the training. I hired the people to work in the facility. Worked with the new supervisors to get everybody trained. It was just a marvelous opportunity. But my first thought was, I'm not up to this. I don't have all the skills I need. And looking back, that would have been the biggest mistake of my life if I would have turned down that particular opportunity. So just because you're young, just because you may not have, if your tool belt doesn't have all the tools in it, there are stores out there that you can go buy tools to put in your tool belt. And so don't be afraid to make a trip to the store. If you have an opportunity, you need to take a leap of faith and do the difficult thing, which is to say yes to something that will really tax your abilities and sometimes tax your patience, but that will allow you to grow by leaps and bounds. After the 3 years that 3.5 years that I spent with that company, I was a completely different engineer. My managerial skills improved 100-fold. My business skills, my ability to understand return on investment and payback, all the different things that go with a position like that, and I would have never had that opportunity had I not taken that job. So point 4 then is again, never turn down assignments or projects or even change of employment or new job just because you think it's outside your area of expertise or interest. In fact, it's almost always to your benefit to do that. And what's the worst that can happen, right? You go in there and maybe there's nobody there that helps you. You turn to your mentors, they give you help, but maybe things don't go quite the way that you want. You're an engineer. There's always going to be a job for you someplace. The worst thing that can happen is that you may have to find another job, and that's just life. There's a great deal to be said for taking the opportunity to grow. It's kind of like for those of you that are maybe sports fanatics like I have been all my life. I cycle, I run, I play racquetball, even now basketball, and if you really want to do well, you have to continue training, and sometimes you have to have to train a little bit harder than others for some events, and you get sore. And and then you go and you compete, and you don't always win. It's the same way with different points in time in your career. Not every job that you have is going to be a winner, and that's okay, because there are thousands of companies out there, and somebody out there is looking for you. So find a mentor, make contacts, and keep in touch with them. Hone those contacts over the years. Offer to help when you can at your place of work. It's plus the fact that for point 3 there, when you offer to help, people see you as a person that's interested in the company, in the projects that are there, and in them, and in the people that are around you, and they will that will also help them to work with you, and it will make your life a lot more enjoyable at your place of work. And then never turn down assignments or projects, and do not be afraid to take that leap of faith, even if it's a new job outside the company. The fifth thing is kind of intuitive, but then again, maybe not, because most of us, especially in this society, unless we try really hard, most of us, because we're human beings, have a tendency to be fairly selfish and self-absorbed, and we like to think that everybody likes to hear the sound of our voice. One of the best ways to be that ambidextrous engineer, that Renaissance man or woman, that very in Spanish they would say hombre de mil usos, the man of 1,000 uses. But one way to prevent yourself from getting there is thinking that you have all the answers and you're the only one that ever needs to talk. So we've all heard the thing, the phrase, God gave us one mouth and 2 ears. Let's use them in that proportion. And it sounds kind of cutesy, but it's absolutely true. You will find that if you use those 2 ears and you listen more than you talk, you will have the ability to get people talking to you, and the information will flow in, and you can analyze what's being said, and you can take in more subject matter. You can take in the experiences of others around you. You can still be a contributor, but a contributor isn't somebody that has to have the egomaniacal center of the floor all the time. You will work with people like that. Almost every company that I've worked for has a number of people like that. The present company that I'm in is no different. And the people that talk all the time are typically not the people that are the true subject matter experts. You will find that the people who are your sources of information probably have that same philosophy. They probably speak when they have something to speak about, offer assistance when they have something to offer assistance about, and otherwise they're listening most of the time. And even if you're the subject matter expert that's 10 levels above everybody else, if you have that philosophy, first of all, you will be perceived as being the subject matter expert, because you don't constantly have to tell people that you're the expert. If you have to tell people that you're the expert, you probably aren't. So if you're the one that's learning, you probably shouldn't be the one that's telling. Early on in your career, it's much more important to use the 2 ears, 1 mouth approach because at that point in time, you need to be like a sponge. You need to be absorbing everything that you can, and making sure that you are surrounding yourself, again, going back to the mentorship thing, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that actually do know, because you sure don't want to learn the wrong things. It's just like a little child learning the wrong habits. It's hard to unlearn those things. So I would say that by doing, following through with this fairly simple set of steps, find a mentor, make contacts, keep in touch with them, make them your lifelong contacts, the important people in your life. Offer to help, never turn down new opportunities, and then you got one mouth and two ears. Use them in that proportion. And if you do that, and you continually try to put into practice the good principles and techniques and expertise that you're gleaning from this type of professional life, you will be a much better engineer. It's also something that you can practice in your personal life as you try to grow to be the person that you will eventually become. It's really, you can be an ambidextrous Renaissance engineer, but you can also be a truly ambidextrous Renaissance person in the same manner. So the principles don't just apply to engineering, they apply to pretty much every aspect of your life. And I guess that's one good thing about that. It's not something you just have to compartmentalize over here and say, well, I'll do these things while I'm doing my engineering work. I'm going to open up to questions in just a couple seconds here, but I do want to say one more thing that really doesn't have anything to do with being ambidextrous or flexible or preparing yourself for your with a knowledge base or anything. But one mistake that I did make, and I have regretted it for many years. One mistake that I did make is I did not take the EIT nor pursue my PE. When I graduated, it seemed like kind of a silly thing, a waste of my time, waste of my money. That was a bad decision. I did have some of my mentors. Tom McGee was one of them that advised me to go ahead and do that. And I knew more than he did. Of course I didn't, but and I didn't do that. So I am going to say 42 years later, as you're finishing your degree, plan on doing the EIT and getting your professional engineer certification. It enhances your credentials. It enhances your stature in the engineering community. And should you ever need to be a part of some type of a certified or even in some cases government operations required, government project that requires a PE, then you can be that person that fills that bill. So just bite the bullet and do it. Don't be a John Nish in that regard. And so at this point in time, we have about 14 minutes left. I'd like to open up to any questions that anybody has. I don't know, Alex, whether you want to open up the audio and just let people ask. I guess that's up to you guys what you want to do. This is unfamiliar territory for me. I much rather prefer being there in front of you where I can see your faces and answer questions that way.
The Q&A function's been working pretty well today, so I would say anybody, if you have any questions, throw them in the Q&A, and then John will be able to see them and answer them.
And while we're waiting on that, I would also remind everybody, anyone who is interested in after this presentation, who is interested in contacting me, my email address is in the program. I believe Alex said it's by my name there in the program someplace. And so feel free to contact me if you have questions, or if you just want to talk further about anything in your career or anything that you're going through at school there. Or if you think you might want an internship in an aerospace defense company. Sarah Stewart says, what are some of the things I can do to practice or improve my listening skills? That's a good question. Well, one of the things that you can do, Sarah, is you can make a concerted effort to put some tape over your mouth in a figurative sense, but make a concerted effort to stop, and if you think you want to interrupt while other people that have maybe some more expertise than you do, or don't do that, and listen, and then formulate one good question based on what you've been hearing, process what you've been hearing, and formulate one good question that then would lead to more in-depth discussion about something. Another thing that you can do is, well, my wife's not here, so I can say this. Another thing you can do is, I guess you get married, and then you can say yes, dear, a lot, and listen, but that's kind of partially a joke. I think the main thing is that just trying to remember that the people who are around you, give them the opportunity to speak as often as possible, even if you think you have something to interject. If it's not, kind of try and consider how important what it is that you have to interject, and whether or not that's going to disrupt the flow of the conversation or discussion. And it could be a one-on-one conversation or a group conversation, either way. And you can, I think, over the years of practice, you'll find that as time goes on, you'll find yourself better able to listen, as well as you come up with better and more substantive questions also when it's when it is time to ask a question. Okay, so Trace has a question. Okay. Oh, I think now I'm seeing it. How do you, this one didn't pop up like the other one did. How do you determine when you are ready to transition from being a listener? Oh, okay. I don't, that's a good question. I think, for instance, we have some young engineers at our company. My adoptive daughter is one of the engineers that I get to work with every day there. She's been working for us for 4 years now, and this last summer we have interns every summer, and this last summer we had 4 interns, and she actually got to mentor them. She wasn't planning on it, and she didn't really feel like she was up to it, but there were just several projects that nobody else was available. And when the summer was over, she said, I really enjoyed that. So I think you can be a mentor, and mentoring skills are good skills to learn also, even though that's not a part of, because we're talking about growing your career, but mentoring skills are good skills to have, because I've taught in colleges before, and in public schools in between jobs when I was down in Texas. I was a full-time teacher for a couple of years when the economy tanked a couple of times. And I found out that even though I was teaching things that I knew quite well, every time I teach, I find out that I learn something. And sometimes I learn something about the subject, and sometimes I learn something about the people. So just by teaching, you will be learning. And so it's never too early to be a mentor. If you get involved as a student at ISU in maybe a club that does some work with youth, to where you're helping to mentor with STEM skills, or your even life skills, you're never really too young to mentor. And so if you're in with engineering subjects, I think you're ready to transition from being a listener to a mentor, I suppose, when you feel fairly confident in a certain area of engineering or in a certain set of skills, and you're confident that it's kind of like the professional apprentice, journeyman, master craftsman thing that almost all jobs used to be, and engineering used to be that way too, long ago. You know, when you're an apprentice, you better be listening a lot. When you're a journeyman, now you can teach the apprentice, but you better be listening to the master craftsman. And when you become a master craftsman, you still need to listen to everybody, but at that point in time, you're the mentor for everybody. So maybe kind of use that model. You know, as time goes on, you're ready to mentor people that have lesser skills than you, but you'll never be the most learned person in the world. And until you are, which is never, then you're never really ready to mentor in everything, and you're never really ready to stop listening. So I hope that answers in kind of a long-winded John Nish fashion your question.
Are there any further questions for John?
What
other non-technical skills are good to learn?
Okay. Well, I don't know. Managerial skills are important. I spent most of my life, I started officiating sports when I was still in junior high. I did some T-ball games in baseball and softball, and then worked my way up. And eventually I did officiating at the Division 4 and 3 and 4 level in NCAA for a variety of sports when I was down there in Texas. And a lot of people would say that, you know, that has nothing to do with engineering. But you know what? Being an arbiter, being an umpire or a referee, that was an avocation that I really enjoyed. And I still, if I was not in my 60s and maybe not quite as fast as I used to be, I still would enjoy that a lot. But the skills that you learn there are a lot of managerial skills. You know, if you can manage to deal with a coach who's got bad breath, you know, standing up in your face and telling you what an idiot you are, and keep your cool and quietly throw him out of the ball game when he needs to be thrown out instead of making a big scene out of it and disrupting things. Those are things that you know, that then you can utilize at your work, because I guarantee you, young people, the jobs that you will have, there will be stress. You will work with idiots. There will be a number of trying situations that will test your patience, and you will have two choices: whether to take the high road and be cool and calm and patient and collected and professional, or whether to act like the idiots and blow up and throw things and scream and shout and curse and all that. And that, you know, that does nobody any good, except maybe just release frustration. Yeah. So, you know, learning managerial skills, however you learn it, I learned it through my sports officiating. And it really helped me not only to manage my time and to manage group work with other people, but it also helped me to manage as I progressed up the management ladder. And when I worked for Olin Corporation, I was their international technical product manager. I had a group of direct reports, and then I had about 10 facilities around the world that I oversaw, a total of about 400 people. And those skills don't just come. So you need to, whenever you get, that's another thing that I was talking about. Never turn down assignments or projects that are outside of your area of expertise. So if they're business related or managerial related or project related, and you just don't think, you know, maybe you're a wallflower, maybe you're not like me, because I've never been accused of being a wallflower, but you know, maybe you are the wallflower type or the person that likes to sit over in the corner. You need to get out of your comfort zone and hone those skills of how to work with other people and manage things. And that will help you in your engineering, because there's no engineering job that you'll ever have that doesn't require managerial skills, even if you're just working on a project and all you've got is one technician. There's always managerial skills that you'll have to have. That's a very good question, Sarah. Thank you. We've got, what, about 2.5, 3 minutes left, Alex?
Correct.
Okay, well, I guess if nobody has any further questions, I would encourage you to follow through with this. Find a mentor, make contacts, offer to help when you can. Never turn down new assignments or even uncomfortable assignments and projects that are outside your area of expertise, and hone your listening skills. Listen, and speak sparingly, especially early on in your career. You have been a good audience, I guess, even though I can't see any of you. I would encourage you, if there's anything that you think I can do for you, do contact me. I will, as Alex can attest to, Alex was one of our interns 2 years ago, and as he can attest to, I don't say things just to say things. If I say that I'm going to get back with you, I will. So just feel free to contact me, and I will be more than happy to assist you with anything in the future. You're quite welcome, Sarah.
All right, everybody, if you need to contact John, his email is on the conference schedule with all those links right next to his. It's john.nish@wellmandynamics.com. Thank you, John, for presenting. It's always great to have you. You always do a great presentation. And thank you to everyone for attending and asking really great questions. This was the last presentation session for the day. So thank you again for attending the conference. Hopefully next year it'll be in person. It's always a lot better when it's in person, but we did what we could this year and put a lot of work in, and I think it turned out pretty good. The final closing message will be at noon, and there's just a link for that on the conference schedule. So please go see that, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Alex.